Hello and welcome to the Believe You Can Be More podcast. Today I'm joined by someone who's done swimming, golf, and even played for a football academy, but also represented GB at the Olympics, doing none of those things, actually in triathlon. It's Jessica Learmonth. How are you?
Oh, that was a nice introduction. I'm fine, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
No, that's all right. Thank you for doing it.
No problem.
So I'd like to start off unrelated. I don't know if you've watched any of them, but I'd like to start off unrelated. So I want you to try and create a fantasy band, right, with a guitarist, drummer, lead guitarist, and bass player. Members cannot be in the same real life band, and you cannot have an additional vocalist. You must choose an existing band member to sing while also playing their instrument.
Right, well, this is a really good start because I honestly don't think I could even name a drummer, a guitarist.
What do you?
Honestly, my music taste is like Celine Dion, Mariah Carey.
What do you listen to then? Like what is like your
Like,
pre-race like playlist?
honestly, it's like Celine Dion and Mariah Carey and Whitney Houston, Tina Turner. I literally listen to them when I'm doing sessions as well. And then my newest is Yola. And you literally don't know any of their band because I mean it's just the main event, in it, the vocalist. So I failed on the first question. Who would yours be?
Who would mind me, right? So on drums is a difficult one, so I'll come back to that. On bass, I'm gonna go with John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin.
Right, you'd get on with John.
Right.
He likes Led Zeppelin.
Then we've got on lead guitar, I'm gonna go with Brian May from Queen.
Right.
Rhythm guitar. Rhythm guitar, I'm gonna go with Liam Frey from the Cortinas.
This is very advanced music knowledge, honestly, compared to me.
You see, on drums, I'm sort of stuck a bit because I don't know whether to go with Dave Grohl or Taylor Hawkins.
I mean, again, those two people mean nothing to me.
Have you never heard of either of them?
No.
Have you never heard of Nirvana?
Yeah, I've heard of Nirvana, yeah.
Foo
But
Fighters.
not the drummer.
Mate, the
Travis
drummer.
Barker. That's the only one I know. I'm really sorry.
You know what? Let's go with that one.
Yeah, well, Travis Barker and Celine Dion. Right pairing.
All right then. So hopefully this is an easier question. Like, hopefully your food taste isn't as poor as your music taste. Favorite ice cream flavor?
I do like a mint chocolate chip.
What is that with everybody? Because like 3 people have said the same thing, right?
Have there?
Yeah.
Well, do you know what? I think it's just a classic and it takes you back to your childhood, don't you think? Well, you're probably still going through your childhood compared to me.
So, come on, right? So we know that your music knowledge isn't that great, but what's the song that gets you motivated?
Do you know what? It's not as poor as, well, I'm hoping that you don't think it's as poor as my other music taste, but I actually quite enjoy listening to a bit of Fleetwood Mac. I think it's Dreams, the specific one, and yeah, that gets me going in a session.
Yeah.
But I very rarely listen to that motivating music. I just kind of have anything to take my mind off it. But if I did, it'd be that. Because like in triathlon, we're not really like swimmers that come on with the big headphones. Very few people, like line up with music on. But maybe I should book the trend and just psych everyone out.
You wouldn't be able to though, open water.
No,
there's nowhere to put it.
Yeah, I've got a feeling some of the lads might. and they must give them to someone before they're not going to dive in with them on. But yeah, so
right, explain who you are in 18 words, because according to Wikipedia, that's how many medals you've won.
18. Is it?
Yeah.
Whoa. Very few are gold. I'd say
actually, what have you done with all the medals?
They're just planked somewhere. I don't really do anything with them.
Even the Olympics one.
No, the Olympics one. That's just on the side, but the rest are just like a box. So, but yeah, the Olympic one, it has its own little box, doesn't it? So that's why.
Right. Go on then. Explain who you are in 18 words.
Right. Well, I've not specifically looked at 18 words. But I mean, I can explain who I am for those that are not, anybody. But I'm a British triathlete, Jess Learmonth. Are you counting?
Yeah, nah. But I think you talk too fast. Just do it in as many words as you want.
Thank you. I'm a short distance athlete, and I've been to the Olympics just the once for Tokyo Olympic Games. And I'm from Leeds and train out of the Leeds Centre here with a few of the other GB athletes, including Taylor-Brown, Vicky Holland, and now coach Non-Stanford.
Okay, so what? Non-Stanford is now a coach?
Yeah. She retired at the end of the year after reaching the pinnacle with getting a medal at the Commonwealth and winning the European champs, actually. And then she called it a day on triathlon and individual career. But yeah, now she's a coach in Leeds and doing very well, I'd say.
So, what's your favorite triathlon discipline?
It depends. I actually like to train running, which might shock you, but then in a race, probably the bike, just because it's a bit more tactical, and the running race is horrific. So
yeah, I do enjoy the bike, as long as it's a good course. If somebody's mapped out a bad course, then it's boring. Hell, literally. Yeah. So, I mentioned in the introduction that you'd tried many different sports. Had you ever tried a swim bike run on their own? Either swim, cycle, run on their own first?
Yeah, like before, yeah. I started my career as a swimmer. So when I was young, when I was at school, I was in the national squad at Leeds. And then I quit when I was about 16, 17. And then I didn't do any swimming. I didn't touch a pool until I started training for triathlon because I absolutely hated it. It just killed the love for swimming. So I didn't get back in the pool until like 22, 23. But yeah, I started as a swimmer.
Do you think that if you'd done the swimming alongside the cycle and the run first off, you would have liked swimming more?
Potentially, yeah, because I think when you're a swimmer, you have to swim so much, 9 to 10 times a week. It's a lot of swimming, whereas now in triathlon, I swim 5 times a week for, we only do about 3 2-hour sessions and the rest are 90 minutes. So it's bearable. Whereas doing 2 2-hour sessions per day was just too much. So yeah, probably. And it gives you variety, doesn't it? A bit of triathlon.
When you're swimming, do you ever zone out?
You jerk all the time. I can't lead the lane because I literally zone out and lose count.
Because when I'm swimming, I zone out completely. But I'm usually zoning out over something that makes me angry. So I swim. So I swim with a lot more aggression. and then when I finish the swim, my dad usually goes, "Best I've seen you swim that." So
well, that's good if you channel it through swimming.
So I suppose it works. So you quit swimming when you were 16 because you found it boring or whatever you.
Yeah.
But you were also part of the Leeds United Football Academy. Was that a career that you were looking to pursue, or was that just sort of something that you liked?
Well, I loved football actually. I started playing football when I was young alongside swimming. And it's funny actually because the swimming coach that we've got now at Leeds, Russ Barber, he was my coach when I was young at Leeds City, and he's now the head coach at the head swim coach at Leeds. And when I was swimming, and I think I could not only have been 9 or 10, I think, when I was in his squad. And I remember him in the Leeds squad saying that I had to pick between, I couldn't do other sports alongside swimming, which is quite normal for swimming because they want you to just focus on swimming.
Yeah.
So they gave me the choice of playing football or swimming. So I chose swimming for some, I have no idea why, to be honest. I think it was mainly because I had more friends at swimming and I had a good laugh. So I quit football. So then when I quit swimming at 17, when I was at sixth form, they had at the Boston Spa, they had a Leeds Academy there. So I just dabbled in it a bit there, so I kind of left it when I was young and got back to it when I was a bit older. And although I enjoyed it, I don't think I'd have ever made anything of it.
What position did you play?
Right midfield. John used to say I used to just run around like a headless chicken, apparently.
Did he watch you play?
Yeah, he did, yeah, a few times.
Not impressed?
I don't think he was that impressed. Well, I don't think he didn't like football.
It wasn't that won him over then, was it? Your footballing ability.
No, he's not a football fan, so yeah, watching me play is probably extremely boring because the standard is a lot lower.
Do you support Leeds then?
I do, yes, yeah. And see, you're a Man City fan.
How fascinating do you find the Championship? Do you miss it?
Miss being in the Championship?
Yeah, Leeds United.
Absolutely not. No.
Oh, well, you best get used to it then for
No, I don't think so.
Ooh.
We're not even in the bottom three at the minute, so...
It's so tight at the bottom. Going back to sort of your sports leader before triathlon, do you think the physicality of football helped with going into triathlon?
Potentially a little bit. I think it probably helped that I did a bit of running when I was a swimmer because now I really struggle running on anything other than road, because my ankles are so flexible from swimming. If I go on anything uneven, they just go over all the time, which is not a problem because they just flip back, but they're just too flexible. So I guess maybe if I had not played football, that'd be even worse. But probably not, because I ruptured my cruciate ligament twice. So I had to have 2 knee surgeries. And when they took the hamstring graft off the second operation, I lost a hamstring basically. So I only have 2 hamstrings in my left leg. So, I mean, I could have probably done with that extra hamstring for triathlon. So it's probably made me a worse triathlete.
Listen, still got Olympic gold. So
True, I don't know.
How good would you have been with an extra hamstring?
Probably not much better, but it'd have caused me a lot less rehab and hassle.
So when did you switch? When did you decide to take the switch from triathlon? So you said that you'd never gone to a pool after you'd quit swimming at 16.
Yeah. So
when did you sort of go to triathlon?
I think it was, I'm terrible with dates. I think it was around 22, 23 years old, because I know I went traveling when I was 21 for a year, so I definitely wasn't doing anything triathlon related at least till 22. Came back, I reckon 23 when I started properly. Yeah. But doing the cruciate ligament helped actually, because I did that when I came back from traveling. I did it the second time, and a lot of the rehab was cycling. So, and John was into cycling, so I had the swimming, bit of cycling, you just try a bit of running. So
Who's the best cyclist now, you or John?
well, I would say currently me, because poor John's got a bad back and he's not rode for a year, so I'm one up on him there. But when he's fit, he's definitely the better of the two.
You think?
Yeah.
So, what made you want to go into triathlon?
It's funny because my dad did triathlon in the 1980s, and I remember quitting swimming and I nearly did it. I nearly went down to one of the swimmers had gone to triathlon group. And I very nearly did it, and I thought, oh no, I was just totally done with exercise. So then when I got back into it, I think it was because I was getting quite fat and unfit. I just wanted to have a challenge, and then I just did a local one. And I don't know if same as you probably, and same as other people, it's just a challenge, innit? And it's something to train for, and it's a nice community, and you just get roped in, don't you?
So were your initial plans for triathlon to do it as more of a hobby and to get fit rather than to go in the professional side?
Oh, 1,000%, yeah. I mean, I literally just carried on doing local ones. Then I thought, oh, I'll do a British Super Series because there were a few of those back in the day. And then I thought, oh, I'll go abroad and we'll make a holiday of it, and I'll do a European Cup. And this is all when I was working full time. And then the results just got better, and I just got a bit more serious, and then I ended up where I am. It's very bizarre.
You'd go into all these European competitions not expecting much then?
No, yeah. I mean, I remember doing the European races and thinking, I only swim once a week, and I work 35 hours a week, and I'm trying to compete against people that are full time. So I remember just going, and obviously I wanted to do well because I'd paid a lot. Like, it's expensive, isn't it, to go over and do it. So I wanted to do well, but yeah, I wasn't expecting to win it or anything, which I didn't.
When you sort of see the times getting better and better, was there ever a point where you looked and you went, I could take this further?
Not to the Olympics, certainly not. I honestly didn't even think I'd go to Olympics until probably 2 years before. I did think I could help, like they did domestiques and stuff. So, people that help other people win gold. So like I do the swim and the bike to help someone else, then go on to win. And I'd seen that British Triathlon were like doing trials for someone for like that, and I thought I'd do all right at that because I was an all right swimmer and biker. I just couldn't run, so that's kind of what fueled me, because I thought I could help somebody do it. And I guess I always thought of myself as somebody like that would be able to help someone else get a medal, and then that kind of got me on, and then it then spiraled anyway.
So when you did your first sort of local triathlon, how did transition one go?
Let me think. Not good, I think. I think I nearly got fully changed. I think I put full cycling gear on.
Why?
Because it was cold.
Yeah, but nobody does that.
I'm sure I did, because there's pictures of me with a like cycling top on. So obviously not very well. I wouldn't even like to think. Well, how did your first T1 go?
Well, my transitions are very much me sit there and everybody else does work because I can't. So what happens is, right, my T1, what happens is I sit on the floor, right, and my dad gets me wetsuit and he just pulls it off. And so he's sort of like, right, he just goes, are you ready? And he's sort of halfway down my waist and then he just yanks it. So what is the feeling when you get towards the finish line in any triathlon, and has that changed since your first one to the Olympics?
Do you know what? That's a great question, and I'd say no. And I even think the beforehand as well has not changed for me. So like the way I approach a race is the same as I did when I was first starting. Because nothing really changes, no matter how big the race is, it's always still a triathlon. It just means that you've traveled for 12 hours to get there, or it's boiling hot rather than freezing cold in Tadcaster or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's the same thing. So it's weird in a way that, my mindset and the crossing the finish line has not changed. I still get the same joy as I did doing it locally,
Yeah.
But yeah.
So do you think that helps with you not pressuring yourself? If you approach it in the same way, it sort of takes your mind off it a bit.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it is easier said than done. Like I'm sure most people would be like, just treat it as another race. But I think it's because when I've worked before and I've done, normal jobs and stuff like that, I just know that that's a life that is a bit more boring, and I'm doing something I love. So I've never put pressure on myself, because I'm always just like, anything that I've done, I find amazing to me that I can do this for a living. So I think it's definitely helped that I haven't put pressure on myself.
How did you sort of like juggle around work and triathlon when you were doing both? So how did you sort of separate the two and have time for both?
Yeah, it was very difficult, actually. I was lucky because John trained quite a bit as well, so we spent the weekend training together, which is great, because then we can spend the time together doing training. And then I just did loads of things like most people do, like chain gangs on an evening, so after work with all the local people. And then I'd just swim once on my days off, and then just fit runs in and around it. And I think you can do it, you just have to go a bit harder, or just be strict with yourself, and just be tired all the time, which is nothing new.
Did you ever run to work?
No, I lived miles away. No. I mean, I worked miles away, but I did ride there and back. Yeah, which was grim. The thought of that now, getting up
really
at 5 a.m. to go to, oh God. None does it now. She rides to the pool. So we obviously drive there and she'll ride there, and I just think, what a hero.
Didn't Ali used to do that? So Alex Brownlee, didn't he used to cycle to training, swim, cycle home?
I think so. Was that when he was at school as well, probably?
I don't even know, but I seem to remember something about Johnny used to finish swimming and go for a shower. He used to be off on his bike on way home.
Yeah, that does not surprise me. It probably is true.
Yeah. So, after your first race, did you sort of know that you wanted to do triathlon?
Yeah, I knew I wanted to train for it. I enjoyed it. I thought, it was good, and I liked having a race to do and to look forward to and train for. I never thought beyond that. I never thought beyond, the next race, or I'm a very bad planner. Like, you ask the coaches now, they'll ask me what I'm doing this year, or what's the next race and what's my aim for this year. And I just think, I'm just going to take it for the next 2 months, and then you can ask me again. I don't like to aim for things. I like to be here and now.
I like that.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? I'm just not I should.
I have to say, I agree with that one.
Yeah. I'm not very good at looking ahead.
So, you didn't want to not that you didn't want to, you didn't expect it to triathlon to go further, and you would have quite happily done it just locally and as a hobby.
Definitely, yeah.
When did word come around that you could represent either GB or England at an international tournament?
I mean, I've been on the team, the funding team, for quite a while before then, because I was on, like I said, as a domestic pilot type effort. So I was training with Non and Vix before they went to Rio. But first individually, I think the first time I got picked was the Commonwealth Games. and I think I'd like blagged a third at the Worlds or something. And I'd had a few, decent races. I'd got in breaks, basically. I got in a break in a race and then able to hang on and podiumed, and I got picked for the Commonwealth Games. And that was probably my first experience of like it's not a major games, but in terms of like multi-sport, it's a major games. And to be honest, when I was in Gold Coast and we went to it, it wasn't that different to Tokyo, to be honest. So it was quite a nice experience for me as a bit of an amateur to go there.
What was it like?
What, at the Gold Coast?
In like the camp, what's the atmosphere like?
It was really good, actually. It was I love the Olympic, not the Olympic Village, the Commonwealth Village. It's with the food halls and all the different foods, and you can just get what you want when you want. So like once we'd finished the race, we'd been out in I don't know where it is on the Gold Coast, out for drinks and stuff. And you just come back and you go to canteen, it's still open, you just get what you want. I just thought that was the best bit. And I was actually injured before I went to the Commonwealths, and I had to do a lot of gym work because I had like a burn stress. I remember going in the gym and it was mental because there were like boxes in the corner trying to lose weight with loads of clothes on, sweating away. And then there were like weightlifters. And it was just so strange because usually we go to races that are just triathlon, and you go into a race with just like multi-sport. And it's just a great experience that everyone's in together.
So, did you then think that you could take it further? Was it then that you thought, I could sort of go further with this, or were you still with the mentality that you'd sort of like blagged it?
Yeah, I still probably thought that, to be fair. It wasn't until 2019 I literally did the test event when we got disqualified, and it probably wasn't until then, literally then, that I thought, actually, maybe I could actually go to the Olympics. And then it all went to pot after that because obviously COVID hit and we nearly got deselected, and it was an absolute nightmare.
How did the postponement of the Olympics affect you? Was it a hindrance? Was it an advantage?
I'd say it was a hindrance for me. I think if you're an older athlete, an extra year is never ideal. And for me as well, the year after I crashed and broke my back, so the December before Tokyo, I had a fracture in my sacrum. So, you could say that's not down to the postponement, but if it were the year before, I wouldn't have had that. But and then you've gone from a year of no racing as well to then go into the Olympics and having very little races, whereas usually you'd race all season, and you'd be a bit more used to the build up. So it was all just very odd.
So when did you realise that you were going to Tokyo?
Probably, I think I thought I might after Tokyo test event, even though we did get disqualified.
What were you disqualified for?
Me and George across the finish line together with the
unbelievable hands. That. Can't believe you'd done that. Court, please.
Yeah, it happens in cycling nearly every weekend, but for us, so yeah. But I think it was then that I thought maybe I could get picked.
So, what was the hardest part of training in lockdown?
Do you know what? I hate to say it, but I loved lockdown. I loved that there were no swimming. It was fantastic. And it was out of my hands. I didn't have to not go. I just couldn't go. So I loved that. I think the hardest part was going out once a day. Because I turboed a lot. Because I chose to, either run or ride outside. That was quite hard. But other than that, it was actually quite good because selfishly, the roads were really quiet. So riding was all right because it was like riding on Christmas Day every day.
Do you ride on Christmas Day?
I don't ride on Christmas Day, no, I just run. But if I'm injured, potentially, which is quite often. So do you train? No, it is a bit.
I've not cycled for a while
Haven't
actually.
you?
No, I need to get back on it.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Once you're off the horse for a bit, you just think this is quite
Yeah.
nice. Got loads of time.
You say you enjoyed lockdown. When lockdown ended, were you like, oh, or were you bored of it?
Um, it did get a bit tedious, didn't it? Because I think when we first had the first lockdown, it was lovely and sunny. Everyone were having barbecues. It was great fun. And then I think like by the third time, it would just get in a bit much, wasn't it? I think everyone had kind of lost the way with not socializing and things like that. And the races were you were unsure and it's all just a bit messy, wasn't it? And yeah, it's just very nice to get back to normal in it, I think. And it's not nice feeling vulnerable or certain actions that you do or speak to people, you could pass it on to relatives or it's just quite stressful, wasn't it? So it was just
So going over to the Olympics, obviously with lockdown still being a massive thing, or isolating still being a massive thing in Japan, was there sort of a sense of feeling worried?
I wasn't not worried. It was just a very strange experience, certainly because when we were at home prior to going to the games, we'd kind of in the UK anyway, kind of relaxed a lot of it, and then it was like going back into a full lockdown in a way, because we as British Triathlon never stay in the athletes village anyway, even if it wasn't COVID. But when we were there, because we were in an outside hotel rather than the athletes village, they saw us more of a threat rather than. So if we were in the village with loads of people, like thousands of athletes, they could control that area. So they thought that the people in that athletes village, were controlled, whereas we were outside of that. So we got treated as more of a threat. So we had more issues of trying to get places and go places because they say, well, you're staying outside of the controlled environment. So it was quite tricky. So we couldn't even though our hotel was about 800 meters away from the race venue, we weren't allowed to walk or ride there. We had to get in a taxi with all our cars, with all our bikes, drive there. And it was quite chaotic, really.
So why don't British Triathlon stay within the village?
Basically because they treat the athletes village prior to COVID like COVID. Because if you're in an athletes village and you go into the canteens every day and somebody gets ill, you're more likely to pick it up. Whereas when we stay outside of the village, we stay in a hotel where we have our own meals, we all sanitize, so it's a lot more controlled. So you're cutting out the risk of any athletes getting ill, and noise as well, because if you stay in the athletes village, you could have, I don't know, swimmers that have finished their event and they're a bit noisier in your apartment. So there's all things like that. So they just invest a lot of money in doing that to help us prepare for the.
Is that just a British Triathlon thing, or do more sports do that as well?
I think it is. Yeah, I don't know of many other sports that do that. Most sports stay in the village because it's extremely expensive. You'd have to invest a lot of money to stay outside of the village.
So how did you travel to Tokyo? Was there a difference in that because of obviously COVID restrictions and that?
No, I don't think so. No, we were just it was on a flight that was with athletes or people that were going to the Olympics.
Private sort of thing, yeah.
But yeah, no, I think we did travel business mainly due to the fact that if we were on an aisle or one of the rows and somebody on the rows two in front or two behind tested positive, you'd pretty much miss your race. So if we travel business, we were less likely to get caught on not being at a race because there were less people on the plane, which is mad.
So did you not experience like the full Like, did you go into the athletes' village any?
We did, yeah, once we'd finished. So when we'd finished our races, we went in for one afternoon, just to have a look round. But yeah, no, we didn't really experience any of it, to be honest.
So, because I was gonna ask you, is it true that the beds were made of cardboard? But if you were in like a different accommodation, then
Yeah, our beds
suppose
were, but they
yeah.
were in the village, yeah, yeah.
Why?
Eco, I think. I don't know. Eco and easy to get rid of them, I guess. I'm just guessing there. They had an eco theme, didn't they? The medals were made out of recycled
Were they?
mobiles.
Was that a Japanese thing or was that an Olympics
I
thing?
don't know, actually. That's a good point. Probably a Japanese thing, I think.
Oh, so going into your actual like races. So your individual race, you say that you don't approach it any differently than your first race. So even at the Olympics, are you still with the same mentality, quite calm and quite relaxed?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. For the individual, for the relay, it was a different kettle of fish. So for the individual, I wasn't nervous for the individual. For the relay, I've never experienced nerves like it, and I actually was very concerned because I've lived my career not having, any kind of pressure on myself, very little nerves or anything, and then I go into the Olympics, and I was extremely nervous. So I was really worried that because I'd never raced like that with nerves, would that affect the way I race? So, which made it worse then. because I was thinking, right, if I'm nervous about it, does that mean that I'm not going to do very well? And because I was nervous, not only leading into the race, but pretty much as soon as I knew I was in the relay, I was, nervous the full time. So it was a really strange experience for me.
Did you have to do the relay? I mean, did you have to do an individual race to get into the relay?
No, so when you go to the Olympics, there's three spots. So there were three women that raced the individual, and you have to be picked from us three. So one of us had to miss out. So going into the Olympics, you know that there's a chance that either myself, G, or Vicky would get picked for the relay. Then post race, they'll then tell you, this is the order you're in the race. So you selected then.
Going into your individual race, was that at the back of your mind at all, or?
No, I didn't even consider it, to be honest. No, not until afterwards. And then afterwards, it kind of dawned on me, and certainly dawned on me that we'd had, Georgia and Yee had medalled, and Jonny had a very, very good race in his individual. So then it kind of dawned on me that we had a very strong team, even though we were ranked fourth, I think. I remember just sitting in the room, just thinking, actually, we're in with a shot, and I actually did feel like a lot of pressure actually, because I was going off first as well, and my individual had not gone that well. It was probably
come ninth. Ninth.
Yeah, it's probably my lowest finish in a long time. So yeah, I had a bit of pressure, I felt, anyway.
Were you disappointed with that position or?
It's funny because I should be disappointed. And when I crossed the finish line, I'd never experienced anything like it in my life. It was like a different finish line to any triathlon I'd ever done. It was like everybody were disappointed other than three people that had podiumed. And I was delighted because I'd seen that Georgia had medalled. So, and I was just elated that I was there. We managed to race. The Olympics might have been cancelled. So I remember just being delighted, like I'd given my all. Like I'd never finish a race going, oh God, I could have tried a bit harder. So in my mind, there was nothing more I could have done. So I finished ninth, and that was that. Like, I'd left it all out there. So I was delighted. So it was just really bizarre. We were like walking around and there's people crying, and it was just really depressing. And I just thought, why does everyone, like, we've all been to the Olympic Games, we've raced, it's finished, like, whatever the weather, just like, let's just enjoy this moment. But yeah, I've never felt disappointed about it.
So in your individual race, if I'm correct, you were first out of the water.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that because it was a non-wetsuit swim that helped?
To be honest, I don't mind either, I have to say. But in Tokyo, it had to be non-wetsuit just because. Well, actually, I was going to say we had a typhoon, so we were actually quite cold. But yeah, I think when you're just so used to naturally swimming without a wetsuit, it's always easier to swim without a wetsuit. And I just prefer in a big games not to have the stress of doing something wrong, taking it off. But yeah, either way, I take wetsuit or not. But I never feel I always feel confident if it's wetsuit.
So you're first out of the water, and then you sort of go to your T1, which is obviously much quicker. Now, I don't think I saw you wearing a cycling kit, full cycling kit.
I bet I've improved.
So, did that make T1 easier?
Oh, definitely. Always does, yeah. You literally have your hats on. You already have your hat off, and all you do is chuck it in your box, put your hat on, you're off. Helmet.
Does it feel weird though that you're not taking off a wetsuit and you're just like?
No, we do a lot of non-wetsuits. We mainly do non-wetsuits rather than wetsuits. It's always too hot. Yeah, so it is quite normal.
So I seem to remember in Tokyo there was a few issues on the bike for some people.
As well, the women's race was really sketchy because it was wet through, and for some reason Tokyo just love zebra crossings on every corner.
Did you have any problems on the bike, or were you all right?
No, I was all right. I was a bit apprehensive beforehand because it was so wet and it was so slippery, and obviously you don't want to go to the Olympics and come off your bike. But then we got onto the bike, and I actually just thought to myself, you've just got to be confident. If you're confident and you're not apprehensive, you're less likely to crash. So I kind of just went gung-ho and probably went a bit too mental, actually. So Georgia says on the bike. But I was lucky in the fact that I didn't actually come off, and I was able, we managed to get around.
How do you keep your focus when you're on like the bike for like an hour or whatever? How do you keep focus?
Yeah, it's a great question, actually. Sometimes I don't. I have to say, sometimes I just think it depends on some races. There's people attacking and there's stuff happening and there's a lot of cornering. It's quite good. But sometimes in some races, when, like you say, the bikes are not exactly, fun, I often get bored. I often ask people how many laps we've done because I just think this is dragging. So
yeah, it's just riding up to someone and going, all right, mate, how many laps have you done?
I'll often have a chat with G and stuff if it is. Depends on how hard it is and what group you're in. I would hate to that's why I like mainly to be in breaks, because I would hate to be in the main pack and just feel like I'm rolling around. But if you're trying hard and it's, you're on the limit, it flies by.
So you get off the bike and you do the run. Now, when you sort of approach the finish line again, I know you said it doesn't feel much different earlier on.
Yeah.
When there was no crowd there, no atmosphere, was that weird?
Well, because we'd experienced it quite a bit, we'd had a few races beforehand that had no crowd. But one thing I do remember is when we dove in and we'd hit the first buoy. I remember looking to the left in massive big stand. It was just empty. And I do remember thinking how different it would be if that was full. Do you know, would I have been a lot more nervous? Because it was so bizarre. I think that's one reason that I definitely wasn't nervous, because there were just no atmosphere. And I think if there's massive crowds, you know, it probably would make it more of an Olympic event. So yeah, I do remember on the run, even though I was dying and I was really struggling, I remember just thinking, just take this in. But then I was taking in, you know, coaches that were clapping past, but there wasn't much atmosphere.
You know, like, because like Georgia on the run had like 500 meters to make up, didn't she? Because the problem she had on bike. So, did you know that at the time, or?
No, I had no idea she'd punctured. I remember that once we'd hit this one corner, it was really bizarre. Like the pack had slowed completely, and I remember thinking, "What? Like, why is everyone just not coming past?" And you're like, and I thought, well, I'm quite happy to just roll in because we were getting ready to run. And I remember thinking, this is so weird that it's so slow, and then
did you not speed up to like just try and get to the front of it?
No, because we were in a break, and like there were a few of us in the break, and we were just coming up to the finish. There were no point of like pushing on. We literally had about a few meters to go. We were just onto the blue carpet, so there were no point pushing on because I'd be pushing on and everyone would just be sitting on me. So because nobody else was pushing on, I thought, well, I'll just sit here. And it was really weird. We just kind of like went really slow into the finish. And then I remember her just pelting past me, like not even that, you know, very early on. So she'd obviously punctured, lost a load of time, racked, and still passed me quite early on. And she'd made up like God knows how long on me. I remember thinking, God, she's had a bad T2. But in fact, she'd punctured, so I didn't know anything about it. It's really strange.
So going into the relay, knowing that you're first off, and you say first time you've ever felt real nerves or real pressure, how did you get past that?
Just got involved. Just literally went for it. I mean, I remember being so nervous that I think I went down to, you know, start, and I thought, God, I'm shaking. You know, like my legs were like shaking. I thought, oh my God. But as soon as you dive in, you literally just panic swim and you're into it. You don't think about it. So you just get on to being, as soon as you dive in, it's more like structural. So you'll go, right, get the first buoy. I need to be at the first so that I don't get mauled. Get around the first buoy. Coming in, you know, you just go through it structured. So then it just becomes more of a structured race rather than panicking about anything. You're just thinking about what you're doing next. So the nerves kind of go.
You're the one that started the team off.
Yeah, so I was like one.
So you do the swim, you do the back, and then on your run, you're literally in a foot race with about 2 or 3 other people right to the end.
Yeah, I think it was me and Katie Ferres going into the corner. Yeah.
And then somebody else sort of joined up with that, and then you were third to sort of hand on the imaginary baton.
Yeah.
Were you a bit frustrated that you sort of run all that way, you were first in, and then right at the end? Sort of.
Not really, no, because we had quite a good lead, and that's all we needed. We needed to be with the people that we had after. We just needed to be in the race, so it didn't matter where we were as long as we were off the pace. And because we were there at the front, like as soon as you dive in, whether you tag them third or first, it doesn't really matter, because it's actually probably better to be third because you get in draft off 2 other people if they're the fastest swimmers. So yeah, as long as I was there, it was fine. Yeah.
Did you know where your other team members were? Because so you'd finished, and then was it Jonny that went off next?
Yeah. So we were watching it. Yeah.
So were you ever, so you weren't really nervous as to the fact of how it will go?
No, because as soon as I'd finished, I'm not even joking,
Yeah.
as soon as I finished my race and I knew I'd handed us off in a good position, I thought we'd win it. I honestly did. I literally, as soon, because I knew that Johnny would have a good race, I knew Georgia would do well and have a good race, and I knew Alex would finish it off. So I literally had no doubt in my mind. It's really bizarre because I'd never think that as myself, but I think it's because I'd finished.
So, with it being a shorter race, was that harder or easier for you? Because like you're used to doing the standard distance, and then it's a much shorter distance. So was that actually harder? Or is it?
Yeah, I think it is harder. Yeah, it's really, it's really fast. I think I had a heat pill when we did the test event, and my temperature nearly got, I think it was like pushing 41, 40.9. So in that short period of time, so in 20 minutes, I'd managed to go from like 35 degrees to 41. Because it's just so, you're just basically going flat out for the full thing. So yeah, it probably is harder, whereas you have a lot more time in the 2-hour race to like, recover a little bit, but you don't have none of that in the relay.
So, coming ninth in your individual event, and you were saying you were delighted with that because you'd known that you'd put all the effort in that you could.
Yeah.
Then winning the relay with obviously 3 other people at your first Olympic Games.
Yeah.
How did that feel?
I can't, really difficult to explain because it was like, I thought we might be able to do it, but to pull it off and everyone have such a good race was just unbelievable. And also, not only that, Johnny then got his gold, silver, and bronze for the Olympics.
Yeah.
So, and it was just such a nice team, and we had a nice atmosphere. So, it just kind of finished it off for me, and I could never have dreamed of coming away from Olympic Games with a medal. Certainly not a gold.
Really?
So yeah, I just remember taking it all and just thinking, this is mental. And it was just really fun. That's all I can describe it. And it was just a good laugh, you know.
Do you think that it would have been a lot better had there been a crowd there and people there to sort of
it'd have been fantastic to have family there as well. Can you imagine? It'd have just been so much nicer. But it was weird because you look back now and go, God, it's so sad that nobody could come. Like John couldn't come and my parents. But then at the time, we were just so happy it was on because it had been so much talk about it being cancelled that you were happy then. So it's weird looking back now because you're like, oh, it's a shame. But at the time, you were really happy to just be there. So it's weird.
Yeah. So going on to the final part of the podcast.
Yeah.
What are your future goals?
That's a great question. Like I say, I'm not great at...
Yeah. Go on then. What are your goals in 2 months?
Yeah, exactly. Get back racing's one of mine because I've had a major injury and been out for so long. And we just shipped G off to go to Abu Dhabi, and it's just weird that you miss it. You miss the traveling, pushing yourself, and I think my aim's just to get back to the World Series and have a laugh again and enjoy it and see what I'm like, and see how things have changed in the triathlon world since I've been out.
So, is there anything that someone has said to you, or you've heard someone say, either on an interview or whatever, that helps you get motivated through whatever difficult times, whenever?
There's been a few different things, a lot of performances that inspire you. My friend, she had a real bad accident, a motorbike accident that she inspires me massively because of the way she is now and how she's got over it, and she's had a lot of grieving and just a bad time. And I think people like that just different stories like that motivate you to do your best and just think, you know, if they can do that and get through things, it just really motivates you to just shut up moaning and get on with things sometimes. So just little stories like that I find more motivating
than words.
Basically.
And what would you say to someone who's struggling to find motivation to do anything?
A difficult one. I always find if you're not enjoying it, you know, you need to look at things that you do enjoy. So there's a reason why you've lost motivation for it. Is it, you know, like going out with your friends? Do you want to go to a club or meet people? I think that I find that if I'm not motivated, I try and find a ways to motivate myself, like enter a race or get John involved and we do things together. Because I'm massively motivated by things I enjoy, you know, and if I'm not enjoying it, then I probably won't do it. So just find a way of motivating yourself through enjoyment.
So make sure you're enjoying what you're doing, basically.
Because I think, well, if you don't enjoy it and you're beating yourself up about
why
it,
are you doing it?
Just find something else or do you know, do a trail run rather than a triathlon, or you know, if swimming's boring, do cycling. I don't know. That's how I think.
Right. Anyway, so thank you for doing the podcast. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. Thanks so much for having me. I've enjoyed it.
Anyway, so thank you for listening, and I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope to see you soon on the next podcast.